excited. Today is going to be about, it's going to be on the topic of road recovery, just because that's my upcoming project coming out. But I think 2020 was a year of truth for everybody. And what I mean by that, you had to figure out the truth and were you prepared for a rainy day. So I'll break it down this way. There were social truths, there were personal truths, family truths, professional truths, like people lost jobs, people lost lives, health was compromised. Um, I think as list goes on, like people know what kind of year 2020 was. But in terms of personal situations, I think now that we got past that hump of like, all right, finally 2020 is over, we're still kind of in it, but we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. So we're like on that road to recovery. So if you had to break it down as far as like everything you're doing, so I want to highlight a bunch of things. You have a book coming out.
Mhm.
You also have been posting a lot of positive videos that a lot of people have been reacting to on a very positive note. But this started within the midst of a year when the world was on fire.
Mhm.
So I don't. I want to know, how are you able to compartmentalize everything that was going on and be the light for others a year when the world was on fire?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the way that I was able to compartmentalize, you know, my content and being positive and trying to be a light when everything is on fire is this is very similar to my whole life. I've had a lot of tragic years. So it depends how how you spin it, but there's always been, tragedy, in my life. When I was 4, my dad died, and that was, let's see, 1999, 3 weeks before my 5th birthday. And I've had, a lot of other, tragic events happen as well. My next door neighbor, who was a great friend of mine, he died when I was 14. So I say that all to say, like, and all those things that have happened, it almost seems like tragedy has always been almost a part of my story, and I've always been a light through that tragedy, stepping up, being the man of the house. Or even though when you're 4, you can't provide for your mom when something like that happens, but just checking on my mom and being like, just trying to be the best kid I could be. Even though I was that young, I still had a concept of what it meant to take care of people. And even though I couldn't provide financially as a child, I could provide, ask my mom how her day was, let her know that I love her, give her compliments. So that was my idea of, in my own household, being the light. So I think that's something I've always been doing. So when it came more so to a tragedy happening within the world and the pandemic happening, it wasn't new territory. It was something I've experienced my whole life. And I was like, you know what? When everyone is feeling bad, I think this is a great time to care about as many people as I can through the platform of social media, putting out positive mental health tips and just ways that people can show up for themselves. Because it's something I've been doing, but I had to step out of myself and be like, you know what, people could really use this right now because they're not used to doing it for themselves. Like, or things are moving a little bit too fast, but people had a chance to take a step back and realize, like, how much was going on, and I was glad that I got to, be that light.
You've mentioned that your dad passed away right before you turned 5, and condolences to your loss. The thing I want to talk about is immediately at a young age, you were able to like understand and conceptualize, all right, I need to be there for others. So it's like, explain to me like throughout your life, like where for throughout the duration of your life, you're always putting others first in a way before your feelings. Like, cause not once did I hear you say, my dad died, I mourned about it, I was going through all stress. Immediately, you said I had to be there and kind of step up and be the man in the house. I couldn't provide financially, but I knew that I had to be there, which being there emotionally and spiritually is just as big as financially. Um, where in life did you kind of start putting yourself first, where it's like, I'm able to kind of mourn for me. I'm able to kind of understand that I've just taken a loss and I need to build myself from this. Or as losses come, because you said you're used to losing things or you're used to going through tragedy, like where did you understand that I'm used to tragedy, but now it's time for me to like break through that or repair myself before I help others?
I would say that that has always been like on my mind because definitely always put others first, like throughout my life. And I would say it actually happened around the same time, ironically, and sometimes we think that like we can't do two things at once or multiple things at once. And there definitely is, power in being like centrally focused, but you can heal yourself and pour into yourself in a very, short time frame or almost corresponding to pouring into others. So as I was helping other people learn about mental health, I was making sure that, I was taking my own medicine. I wasn't just preaching, but I was practicing what I was preaching. Like instead of telling somebody, hey, you should meditate, I was like, hey, let me make sure I do this first before I put it out. So I think that the timelines were, close to parallel as far as me showing up for myself. And in me showing up for myself, I was actually able to be more present for other people. It was something that I had done almost strictly on one sided, but then it became to where I felt like it was a very even exchange for myself last year. And now going forward, it's work in progress too. It's not like you have it figured out one day, or I think there's a misconception that people who might be a mental health advocate or therapist, psychologist, that they have it all figured out. But getting your mental right is a lifelong journey and process. And I do believe that you're either coming out of a storm, about to go into the storm, or you're in midst of what you're going through. So within those three, periods of trial and tribulation, as they say, it's going to show you who you are. And you have to be, I shouldn't say you have to be, but oftentimes you're going to be at a different place in your life as you grow. Sometimes you progress, sometimes you regress, sometimes you stay the same. There's so many factors that contribute to how you handle, whatever you're going through. And sometimes, you feel like you might be ill-equipped for what you're going through. It can always, change.
A good point. The one thing I want to touch on is that, so you're right. Think about now, you finished writing the book, right?
Yep.
So you wrote the book. I guess majority of it was edited and written in 2020.
Yes. Conceptually, idea was like 2019 to put it together, but 2020 is like the bulk of actually like everything getting done.
That's when like pen to paper, like that's when things like the construction and the process of it, mainly as far as the entire year took place, 2020.
Yep.
So I want to think about it from this standpoint. So you're in a year in the middle of a pandemic. A lot of things are happening. You're from New York, so I'm pretty sure you're probably, correct me if I'm wrong, you're a Pop Smoke fan. You witnessed some depth of him. You played sports growing up, basketball, football, anything else I'm missing? So Kobe passed away. We both played football at Temple together, and one of our best friends, my roommate that year, passed away. So you're dealing with death. You're dealing with all these different things. And like you said, as you're doing it, you're helping your friends, you're helping out other people who are close to the situation. But at the same time, you're still trying to manage a vision, manage a vision of positivity, manage a vision of getting something done. How was that process in terms of creating the book in the midst of the adversity of an entire year? And what I mean by that is like a lot of times you can have a picture in your head, but God gave that vision to you. Not doesn't mean that everybody sees the vision exactly you see it. A lot of times people don't understand something until it's complete. So in the midst of that, can you kind of tell me what was support like? Who were you kind of going to in terms of completing the task? And let's say if you had writer's block or you were feeling discouraged, like what was your support system as you went through that?
Loss within the year started off like crazy, like losing Kobe as an athlete and someone who, so there's like an approach mentally to the sport and then obviously like how you play. But his mindset was so much like poetry in motion. You can feel like the energy from him, his will, how much he wanted to win, and just how present Kobe always was. So he represented a lot on and off the court, um, just for like young black men to aspire to be. And just he was so fearless. And we come from a culture, especially, being, black in America, young black men, that fear is almost, innate and second nature to us, whether it's, seeing police brutality, seeing, people in our family pass away, gun violence, all the things that we kind of like go through. That's normalized. It's very dysfunctional, but it's normalized dysfunction comes from a place of fear. So seeing a black man that was fearless in his approach and the way he played a game was just a very beautiful representation of what we could be and strive to be. So losing that was more than just like losing an athlete you looked up. It was like losing an ideology that you had grown to, accept and try to implement into what you do. We all were saying Kobe when we shoot a fadeaway, and it's something that it seems so trivial and small, but the people that we look up to are athletes and entertainers and people that are, given to us through the media in a lot of ways. So that definitely hurt a lot. And me personally too, dealing with Kobe's death, it was tough because it's almost like you want to meet these people and tell them like, hey, you inspired me, and you're never going to get to have that chance, which makes you want to be, more present in the moment, make sure that you want to do things like today, not 5 years, so I can meet the people that I want to meet now and get in the rooms I want to get in now. So that was definitely, it was sad, but it was inspiration as well. And then the last thing I'll say about Kobe is he was like the pinnacle of hard work and sacrifice. And he represents too like how hard it is to be just like have such a sharp focus. And I've always wanted to get to that place, and I'm trying to get to that place still. And the fact that, he was gone, it was like, man, like I really felt like I didn't get to embrace as much of my mentality while I was here as he wanted to. But energy is forever. It can't be, created or destroyed, only transferred. So you just got to
Right.
take that energy and go with it. And then to progress into losing Pop Smoke, who was like just getting on the scene, and I haven't felt like New York be like that since 50 Cent. Like he had that same just mega star energy.
You mentioned Kobe. The biggest thing you realize about him is like he was a phenomenal basketball player, but it was the mentality that like attracted you to him. It was like that like unapologeticness, like I'm going to be great, whether you like it or not. Same with Pop Smoke. If you think about it, it was aggressive, it was abrasive, it was in your face, but like the mentality was I'm going to make it. Like um, even I think about our late friend Zaire Williams. That's kind of a mentality he had. Like when you first met him, it was contagious. You knew exactly whatever he wanted to do. You knew it. He didn't hide it. Like he wanted to be
Yeah,
great. He told everybody.
he was always like out in the open. And the reason I like, as far as just the organization, even my thoughts with that question was, it's ironic and super sad. There was a Noto, Pop Smoke had performed, I guess, what was that, in January maybe? Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe around the time, I want to say January. Um, and Zaire was there. And that was the last conversation we had at the Pop Smoke like Noto concert.
That's
Um,
crazy.
it's
That's really
crazy.
crazy.
And Zaire, like he said, like, yo, I love you, bro. We were just rapping real quick. Like in the club, how you get the essence of what people say, but I could have lost like a word, but like for sure without shouting out, he's like, yo, I love you, bro. Like I rock with you. And he's
Yeah.
like, yo, just hit me, bro. Just hit me. Like meaning
That's
like
him.
the
That's
last thing
definitely him.
was that he didn't want anything like, how do I put it, outside of just genuine love and friendship. Like when he saw me, he just dapped me up, showed me love. And we like had a video, and it was on his phone, and he passed away obviously, a few weeks later after that, to gun violence. And it's crazy. That's our last memory. And within that, I feel like the one thing that does help me with closure is like we exchanged how we felt about each other. Like, I love you, bro. We got to embrace. But
Right.
it's also physically, it's crazy sad that wherever that video is, I think it was like a Snapchat. I wish I would have had him like save it, send it to me. Like it just
Right.
feels like a memory that's like literally in the cloud. So it's definitely
Yeah.
tough, but I
Crazy.
miss my
You brought
brother.
up Noto. That was like the first real performance I did with like my like music, and he was there that night. That was our last like real picture together with at Noto. So it's come transferring it over to actually doing the work. And
Mhm.
you did the work, obviously. Like the book is complete, and you have like a hard copy of it, everything. Right now, you're like in the final finishing touches. So, what was your mentality to that point? Like, did you experience doubt? Did you experience anyone who didn't see it as clearly as you saw it? Did that kind of trouble you any? And like, kind of like talk us through that process, how you got through that to get to the point where the book is done.
Yeah, man. it was definitely a journey, and then seeing like having a vision and still being like in the part where we're ready to go forth with marketing and ship it out, and have the world be able to talk about it, because as an artist, even an author, I consider it art. You kind of There's always things you can tweak about it, things you can fix, but being able to just leave it for the world to decide, it's crazy being at that point now. But I would say, to answer the question, anytime you want to achieve something, it's really like vision. First, you have to see it in your head, and then you have to make the actionable steps and the plan to get that vision to be materialized. So what helped me get through that process was my why for writing the book, and it was very therapeutic too, in the sense that like I was writing it for my younger self. Like
Yeah,
its root was for
elaborate
that.
on that right there. That's right there. Your why. What was your why for wanting to write this?
Yeah, so hmm, it's interesting because it talks about this in the book, but like knowing your why, and it was something really important to us to do as Temple football players. Like it was exercise, you know. We had to, ponder, ruminate on, like we had to think about that deeply. But it's multi-tiered. So my why for writing the book, I'll give you the first one was, I said I wanted to write it for like my younger self. I wish that I had tools to get out of certain headspaces, and the book's about self-development. Is about like improving who you are, and I wish I would have had someone in my ear that could have helped me with some of the things I was struggling with, how to face my traumas, how to deal with being myself, and how not to resort to escapism. And what escapism can look like is different for everyone. Like you can have your vices, or sometimes you might just like put it off. A lot of times people be like, oh, nah, whatever. Like it's not that deep. Or you might feel something and you don't choose to act on it. You might choose to, you might party instead of like really dealing with your deep seated issues. So I wanted to put that type of knowledge in the book for people to be able to show up for themselves. Because for me, writing the book, I was like, this is showing up for my younger self. This is what I'm doing for my younger self. Like, okay, this is how you might have dealt with the trauma, me being able to look at that in hindsight, but this is like better ways to deal with that. And then that also relates to the why of giving this back to people who their biggest pain point is they want to be better. There's so many people that feel like
Right.
their potential is like trapped inside of them, and
Mm-hmm.
they need the tools to, kind of break out from that loop. It's very easy to do the same things over and over again. You might be well intentioned, but how do you form better behaviors? So that's something that's huge in the book as well.
So you just brought up something that was like very prevalent within our culture and our society, and it's a norm for life. Like you can go back to I guess AD period, and you'll see people had vices. So what I mean by that is like you're writing within an artistic and creative process. It is draining
Sure.
emotionally, physically, mentally. Like you go through periods where you may have written the greatest like segment of your book, but you had to revisit those traumas as you wrote them down. So you
Mhm.
like the next following day or maybe the following minutes, you're like, why am I depressed? Why am I tearing up? But you know what I'm saying? Like you're
Mhm.
revisiting moments in life that were triggers. And I feel like those trigger moments are what make us appreciate art so much. So what I mean by that is like think about you walk past a smell and you immediately go back to a moment in life where like, oh, I remember this, I remember that person. You know what I'm saying? So while you're going through that process, what vices did you pick up or vices did you have already that kind of were enhanced as you're going through the creative process? Maybe you didn't have any, but what's something that you realized was like kind of a guilty pleasure as you're going through your creative process that when times got hard to start firms in terms of writer's block or in terms of just the emotions you experienced as you were creating it, like what did you kind of result to?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so much like vices that came back up, but I would say way of dealing with certain trouble. Like there's been times that, you know, I feel like it relates to, fight or flight, like where you can face something head on, or you choose to, kind of retract from whatever it is if you feel like the threat is too great. So I would say that was like the biggest thing that came back up is if sometimes I wrote something that was like very painful to go through and I didn't want to face it that day or face it that week, I would just I'd be like, yeah, I got to put this down. I got to come back to it. Like, and I think that's been, some of our problem, like in the past, like if something gets difficult or even if it's like a relationship or something that like could be mended if we work through it, there might be a problem at hand and I've, avoid it. Avoidance is a communication strategy. I think that could be a vice in itself, depending on how you look at it, how you choose to, what actions follow you avoiding something. But
Right.
definitely that was one of the biggest things. Like I was like, man, this is like the elephant in the room. And instead of, finding the tools to deal with it, there were definitely moments where it brought up old behaviors of just leaving the room when the elephant is there.
Exactly. I think it's funny because it's related kind of to what you're saying. I think in terms of the elephant in the room, but it's something that's kind of uncomfortable as an artist. And you correct me if I'm wrong, because you've heard plenty of my songs. I kind of I lean towards it. So meaning, if I know it's
Mhm.
something that's going to cause controversy or something that like I went through, but people can relate to, I'm going to fight through it. So like, what moment in the book for people who are going to go out there and spend their money, they're invested in you, and they know it's going to be a great product? What's something you can tell us as far as the theme, not necessarily the specifics, that was a moment that you know was a challenge in terms of being uncomfortable or the elephant in the room that you leaned into because you really wanted to like drill that home?
Mm. I would say dealing like in the book, there's passages where I deal with like the trauma or directly see how, losing my father, what it made me, like how did I react to that? There's an exercise in the book that, says how to deal with events because it's pretty much like you throw the rock into the middle of the lake, right? And you have that visualization that once the rock comes, it's in the epicenter that just, went into the lake. And then you see all the ripples. And those ripples are also, traumas that stem from the original, impact. Somebody dies, but how do you deal with that? And me dealing with those moments and then seeing, how they affected me and then also just taking the time to be like, okay, this is what was going on. And this is some of the negative ways I've dealt with them. And then also there in like the concept of lessons. So for instance, there's a passage that talks about like the accountability that I had to have with knowing that, it wasn't my fault that I was in certain situations. You're supposed to grow up in a parent, like a two-parent household, with love, and you're not supposed to, have to deal with certain things so young, but I did, and definitely made me, act a certain way and live life a certain way. And they weren't the best ways to, you know, thrive, but they were what I felt I had to do to survive, with my knowledge at the time and
Right.
realizing, that's not always the best practice. I'm not trying to give away too much of the book because I want people to,
Yeah, no, definitely no,
be
no.
super
I want
eager.
you to, but no, everything you're saying is right on. Take something that you want the audience to take away as they read the book. So they just finished the last page of the book. They're sitting there. What's like one? What's the target audience you're reaching out to? And two, as they put that book down, what's something you want them to walk away saying like that's something I didn't know before?
So yeah, the first one, as far as the target audience, so there's actually two target audience for this. It's like the student, what I would speak, and like the mentor, the coach. So for the target audience, that's the student. It's the people that are our age, especially young Black men and women who are going through some of the hardships of trying to make it in the world, and they need a little bit more like reinforcement of education along their way to know how to deal with being their best selves or knowing how to meditate, knowing how to find certain answers within themselves and how to be resourceful. So that's a very important target audience. But also there's people that are caretakers for us, like our parents, our coaches, and some people too, as far as diversity and inclusion, that might end up being our bosses that don't understand why some days when we've had a friend that's passed away from, things that they weren't supposed to, that have died from gun violence, or there's a lot of, sickness and disease in our culture, and we experience more loss than any other culture. Somebody could have got locked up, whatever it might be. There's certain ways that, we deal with these things, and they need to have an insight into like some of the traumas that we're going with, so they can know how to best, work with us, as opposed to be like, you know what, this person that's working for me, they're just, they don't want to be here. They look sad all the time. But a lot of times those can be your best workers if you actually take the time to know them and know their stories. And some of our stories and hardships are a little bit more universal. So
Exactly.
that's also another, main demographic as well. And something that I would want people to take away from this after they're done reading is that, they have the keys to be their own hero. All the keys are
Mm,
locked, not only, inside of you. There's a lot of things that you need to just find time to be still, be one with yourself, and listen to the answers that your subconscious mind has already been giving you, and
right.
things that are problems that you just haven't dealt with yet. And also knowing how to get help, but just realizing that you are the person that's going to show up for you. Like, you can be the person that saves yourself. Nobody
I
needs
like
to
that.
come in like Superman. You can do it.
You are your Superman.
You are your Superman. Exactly.
I like that. No, yeah, this has been great. But I thank you for speaking on the book, the experience. But now I want to kind of change gears. And in terms of that being, what advice would you give anybody who wants to be an author? Like, were you a heavy reader before you wrote a book? Was it kind of like you had an aha moment, like the experiences I've had, I want to help them moving forward? Um, Even your writing style, like where did you get all this from? Because a lot of times you think about artists in terms of musicians, they have a muse when they're creating, or they have people they look up to and listen to all the time. Kind of like talk about your creative process and your style and what we can expect in terms of moving forward.
Yeah. So I would say so I wasn't like a heavy reader. I would read maybe more than the average person. I wouldn't say like there's some people that read like a book a week. I'm not on that level. I read more than the average person, but I'm not like, you know, the people that try to like read everything that they can. So I'd say
Right.
I'm somewhere in between on that. But the reason I realized like how vital a book could be is just you could really just take it with you, and it's not like something on YouTube that can you might watch it and then you go away from it. It's like it's just physical. The digital world is amazing, and there's so much greatness in the world that we live in today. But information is still great when you can have it in your hands, and there's just something about that tangibility. So I wanted to, write the book, like I said, for people that were like my younger self that needed some of that help. So I was super important. And as far as style, when I went to, start this book, I had a couple things in mind. I wanted it to be enough brevity where people can like come and read a chapter, cool, and then go on about their day, but also think about it. So
Mm-hmm.
that was important. That's how I really went to outline it. So the book is composed of 50 short chapters that are lessons that you can apply to your life, and they're meant to be lived. It's not just read. They are things that you're supposed to think about, and sometimes
I
you're going
like
to
that.
read the chapters and you're going to be like, wow, I don't know what to do. I feel like this gave me more questions than it did answers. There's
Answers.
definitely going to
Yeah.
be those moments, but in life, the better questions that you ask yourself, the better life that you have. I firmly believe that. So if you ask yourself the hard questions, you can get those answers.
Here's a question I have for you in terms of when those questions arise. Let's say I buy your book, I read the book, but I have questions. Are you tangible? Like, can I reach out to you and say, listen, I have questions on this, and this, and this. How should I move forward? Or I just don't understand this. Like, are you accessible from that standpoint?
Yes. So, and I'm glad you asked that. And it's in a few different ways. So I have some contact information within like the book. So if you wanted to reach out to me like via email and ask a question about like a chapter that you might be like, hey, like I thought this was insightful, but I'm kind of struggling with this one thing, and you want to reach out to me more so for advice or an event, whatever it might be, you can do that. Also, there's going to be more long form of the book in webinar
Okay.
form. So it's going to be like every chapter explained a little bit more thoroughly, and that'll be available for people in June. So
Mm,
that's a few months away, which is exciting. And that's gonna, any questions that people might have, I think if they watch like the webinar series that I'm developing, they'll be able to get things more longer form if they need it. If that little spark wasn't enough for them and they want a little bit more, they can come there. And lastly, which is something I'm super excited about, there's going to be a community built around the book, which I think separates it from a lot of books. There's going to
actually, I like that.
be a Discord community. I don't want to give too much away about that yet,
Ah,
but people are going to be able to share their answers with each other. We're going to start a marketplace, an environment where people are self-helping, not only themselves, but using the people's other people's stories, excuse me, to help them, and whatever they're going through. So we'll be able to share stories with each other, be able to share advice, information, and it's going to be a beautiful place. Like I just think about that community of people that want to grow and come together, and it's going to be special.
I like that. Listen, super happy for you, super proud of you. I want to kind of give you your flowers while you're here. Phenomenal what you're doing. Um, Within a year, when the world was on fire, you wrote a book. I can see the progression. I can see the progress you have made, and I'm super excited to read the book. Let us know the title of the book and when it's dropping.
Yeah. So the title of the book is 50 Lessons to Jumpstart Your Self Development. And the book is a part of a greater series called Footsteps to Leave Your Footprint on Earth. And it's all about the things that you need to do to have a lasting impact on other people, also have the legacy that you want on this earth. So I'm excited about, the book, excited about the series, and then it'll be available, be on Amazon, Kindle. That'll be available early April for you guys to pick up.
Awesome. Thank you, Sully. Um, so that was a spotlight on Adrian Sullivan book coming out. You heard it here first. But now we're going to kind of transition into the after party, I guess you can say. So like right now, what are you listening to? Because people know me, I am the aux cord bully. You get in my car, you come wherever I'm at, I will take the aux cord and I play what I want to play. But want to know, what do you play when you have the aux?
Man, I love this segment already. So recently I've been, just so music is a huge part of my life. You know this, but the world may not. I'm like one of the most eclectic music listeners, that I know. I listen to everything, and people be like, I listen to everything,
Wait,
but
I'm
they don't
cracking
really
up.
mean it.
What's that track? Was it Down in Blue by the
Busted and Blue by the Gorillas.
Yo, wait, I ain't
Um,
gonna lie. You put that to the chat, and I haven't stopped listening to it like once a week, especially on Monday. That is the go-to. Like, I'll let you finish.
it's classic, and I listen to country music. I listen to 80s, and that's what a lot of what I've been listening to now is like. I have a playlist of like, I'll call it all type of genres. It's actually
Mm,
called Tour Life, the playlist. I should make it. I'm gonna make it
public.
like not collaborative, but on Spotify and Apple Music, so anybody watching
Yeah.
can see it. But it's called Tour Life, and it has like all genres. Uh, I've been listening to Whitney Houston, that's on there.
Mm,
Hall and Oates.
yeah.
Let's see, Stevie Wonder, a lot of classics. But then it goes to a lot of what we grew up listening to, like the T Pain,
Mhm.
like early 2000s music, Usher, and then
Yeah.
you got some things from today. Of course, got Drake, Lil Baby, Gunna, things like that. Trying to think what else is on there. Even some international music, as far as Burna Boy. Let's see, Ozuna.
Yes. Like
Yeah, so
sidebar. I love listening to like Ozuna and like the reggaeton or the Spanish music because the melodies they hit. And like the weird part about it is you can probably attest to if you ever hear a melody or a song from someone from a different country, you'd be like, that sounds just like a Drake song. Or like you know what I'm saying? Like you heard it, like you like almost like you heard it before. So so I'll never forget I was in Puerto Rico one time and was walking past, if you walk down the strips, they have different clubs and stuff, and it's like kind of like Miami where they have promoters and stuff until you come inside. It was like a song playing in a place that sounded exactly like Fetty Wap, but he was not speaking English and it was not Fetty Wap. And like I feel like that is like that's crazy because now I understand how you can be from Korea and hear a song from over here and you can vibe to it because the melody, it's like the feeling you get from it. So like, what artists do you listen to that give you that feeling? It's like I don't care if I understand what you're saying or not. I'm going to continue to play you, and it can even be someone from over here in America.
Yes. Man. So the crazy thing is there's some artists that I can't even pronounce their name, but Burna Boy, he makes music that's like Afro beats, and sometimes I can't understand what he's saying, but it sounds
Right?
so hot that I'll just try to learn the way he pronounces it. And it's probably a freestyle the way I'm singing it, but it's hot to me. uh
Yo, that remind me of
for
when we were
sure.
younger. Remember, he'd be like, wow, shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Like nobody knows what he was saying, but you just
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's yeah, Burner Boy. I'm trying to think who I think her name is also Jessie Reyes. She's crazy. Like her music is awesome. And she makes some music that's in Spanish as well, but the melodies are so like sharp. And a lot of times I'm not sure if it's just because how they do music in a different place, but the tracking and the engineering will be like way different. So it hits your ear completely different, not just because the melody and the words are kind of more so catered around another language, but even the way they actually are like recording the music and the way that they're tracking it is not like what you hear on the radio. And I'm like
right.
really listening to them, like, hey, like you would never have like the background vocals maybe turned up like that in a spot, or people would put this here and the song structure is different. So it's very, very unique how other cultures do it, but that's what I'm listening to.
Definitely. No, and I'm glad you said that because, like, I feel like that's where, if you do listen to foreign music or in other countries, it allows you to honestly diversify your song. So if you're an artist and you're recording stuff that wouldn't necessarily be normal here, that's what my ear is the track. It's like ear candy to me. So if I record
Hmm.
a song and it's mixed and master and it's not like how I liked in that song, it like frustrates me. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in terms of, because right now you reside in the Philadelphia area, what Philly artists do you like right now?
What Philly artist do I like right now? All right. Well, it depends too, because I listen to a lot of you and Lee. So for the people at Maj and LX, that's like without without a doubt. Also artists I A&R for, Jonelle Pierre. He's super special as well. I'm trying to think Philly artists. So I've been listening to a little bit of Leaf Ward.
Okay,
Somebody hit me to him. Um, Core is he. It sounds like he really elevated his game
got
and the
you.
music that he's making. He just had a project that was super dope. Um, Tierra Whack is
Got you.
another Philly artist I'm listening to. Every now and then I'll go back to the classics like State Property, the Beanie Siegels, Freeways of the World, ARAB as well. Um, I'm trying to think any other like Philly artists. Philly is also like the city of the rappers. So what I
Yeah,
mean by that is there's so many rappers that
don't have
might
projects.
not have any aspirations to be big, and they just put out singles all the time. So there's
Yeah,
songs from people that I don't even really know who they are. There's somebody from like their name will be predicated around the block in Philly they're from. They'll be like Jalil 5900. Like
right. Yeah, but he just put fake fire for 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
exactly, just raps, no chorus. So sometimes,
No,
so
the beat been
sometimes
stopped.
it's crazy what goes on in Philly. But yeah, so some of those artists every now and then when they come across my timeline or something, I listen to them. But yeah, that's it for the most part.
Right now. So if we get in the car, we're driving, we ride like 30 minutes away. We need 5 songs. What 5 songs are you gonna play?
Mm, man.
Because I'm saying 5 songs. After that, I'm taking off. So
Okay, you're gonna take the aux.
for people who worry
Uh,
about the math of that.
oh, let me see. Too. Also, this is funny. So the first thing I'm playing while I cue the other 4 songs, because
Yeah.
you got to play something fire right away.
True.
People might not know AA meetings come on first,
Ah.
first. Like, while that's going to give me like 3 minutes to queue up what else I have on AA
For
meeting.
you don't know AE meeting, it's coming soon.
Oh yeah, my bad. Sorry, I let the cat.
You out here,
Got
you out
that.
here snitching.
It's all right. They just gonna have to get ready for it. Yo, I'm not gonna. I have to make sure that I don't play anything whack over to top top featuring Lil Durk. Sorry, I had to look at my. I'm looking at my playlist now. But top
PC.
featuring Lil Durk by Fredo Bang. It's tough.
Okay.
That's definitely in the top 5 of what I would play right now. I've been listening to a lot of throwbacks as well. So I'll have to put some Jay-Z in the mix on the aux. It might be listen to like public service announcement a lot actually. So it might have to be that like to kick it
Hey,
old school for a little bit. So I'm at
hey,
3. We got
FNC Sully.
you already know. Like I'm from New York, so that's mandatory. Also, I'm not sure. I probably have to talk a little bit to make the transition smoother, but I have to go into the
Straight
you got
DJ
to know
mode.
how to transition in and out. But as far as like the new R&B as well, there's an artist named Blast out of the West Coast
Yeah.
that is tough.
I'm heavy
Um,
on his new project.
yeah, his new project is fire.
You
So
don't
I'd
wanna
have to
be
play.
alone. Yeah.
But that I Be Alone is crazy. The funny thing is I was probably gonna say Be Alone or Right or Wrong would have came on next.
Yeah.
So that's we have 4. And I'm pretty sure we related somehow. So I gotta show love to Jasmine Sullivan. Like the new project she came out with, the Hotels project is amazing. So I might play that like Pick Up Your Feelings last.
hmm
And that'd be my 5 right now. A little bit of, everything.
Nah, that's a solid list. It's crazy because I'm thinking about the title you even just said, hotels, and like you think about the projects that came out within last year to now, it's all been around like truth, the vulnerable, like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I'm excited to see like how moving forward, what the titles are going to be like. Um, what projects are you most excited for within the upcoming year?
Yeah. So I think it's like the overarching one, and people that work closely with artists, or they'll like. Obviously, I'm always going to plug you and Leanne and Jornell as well to what I'm excited for their projects. But overarching, I feel like everyone in the industry is excited for Drake because he
Yeah,
represents like it seems like things kind of all right. Drake drops, and now like all right, cool, we got that, and then it's almost like everything else falls under that because Drake is such
right,
like a I don't even know. I guess they call him like polarizing figures, but it's just like he has that Michael Jackson or Beatles effect to where it's greater than hip hop. So
right.
I'm excited for his project to come out. And then in that same realm, as far as being on top of hip hop, I would say any project from J. Cole or Kendrick. I'm
Yeah,
also excited for them to drop.
all
But
three, all three dropped this year. That's going to be big.
that we need it. Like we really that would be so positive. I feel like when drop their music drops, like the world is like okay.
But they got to be like, I don't know how to put it. Whoever drops first, let's say like prime example, Drake drops first. It was supposed to drop in January, but didn't. If
Mhm.
his drops and it's crazy, we're not getting both Kendrick and J. Cole. Like one of them is going to drop out from this year. You know what I'm saying? And they're
Yeah.
gonna be like, oh hell no, I gotta, we gotta go back to the lab. But if it's
Right.
trash, we may get all three.
Yeah, Certified Lover Boy. It's interesting. I'm not sure what to expect from this project. And does he because he's never really had like one or the other. So the name could be misleading and we could still get the same amount of like Drake songs where his projects go like this to me. There's songs where, he sings primarily, songs where he raps, and songs where, he's somewhat in
What a both.
between.
Yeah,
But he's never had an album that's like been straight through either or.
right.
So
And
might
that's
be.
it's crazy you say that because like from that respect, I understand why. Because if I can do all of it, like, why am I putting myself in a box?
Yeah, no, it's more so for the purist of one side that he would
Mm-hmm.
be, but that's not. I don't know if that would be staying true to the authentic Drake.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Exactly.
so
Now I'm
yeah,
definitely excited. It's been some time. He had a lot of big singles over last year, even the features. So interested. I mean, obviously dropped Dark Demo last
hmm
year. So I'm interested in seeing how this year goes about. Last thing I'll say is in terms of this year, what's something you're excited for, like moving forward? What's next for something?
yes. All right, so this is gonna be. We'll do this a certain type of way. There's something that you know, just because private person, so I'm
Oh,
not going to give the world just yet.
I wasn't even talking about that. I meant in
Yeah,
general. Like,
no,
like
it's all good.
the
It's
big
all good.
project.
People will understand. I think that will be like really cool when people like look back and
Understand it.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, nah, something that I'm super excited for really just is the book to come out and then the community that's gonna correspond with that. I'm super excited about that. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what I can and can't say. But you and Lee have projects coming out um, that I'm very excited for. I'm trying to see if I left anything off the table that because you can't give everything to people right
No,
away.
you,
You know what
no,
I
you
mean?
can't. Right. Now,
But yeah,
this
that's
is
what
what
I'm
I'll do.
excited for. How
I'll
about
take
you?
you off the hot. I'll take you off the hot seat. So we got a couple more minutes left. I'll allow you. This people don't usually do this, so I'll allow you to do it. I'll let you ask anything you want to ask me.
Hmm, let's see. But the interesting thing is, like, I'm right back on the hot seat because now I got to come up with a good question. But it's all good. I got it.
Yeah, see, I'll sit that real quick.
Uh-huh. I like it. I like it. Hmm. What do
Be
you? What are you
my
gonna say?
fault. I was gonna say be strategic because I cut it out.
That's funny. I was
No,
going to
I'm
say,
good.
what does Maj think is the next evolution and next phase in the sound of Maj? And to go into that, like what's next for Maj as far as sonically, there's a lot of times when you first start making music and now you're getting more and more polished that the things that you have in your head don't exactly sound like what they come out as, but you're getting to the point where I feel like everything is in so much more alignment. So what is that next
Yeah,
evolution for you, like sonically? What should people expect?
I think something that's been very apparent throughout my entire career now, which has been very short lived, I guess you could say, is that I never shied away from like the vulnerable or the truth. So if you think about the first like thing I dropped outside of Hype Man, which is like what most people know, was Uber. So Uber was very like I guess
Mhm.
gut wrenching, heartfelt, like that's what it was. But as you go, I'm still addressing the uncomfortable. So throughout my entire like time now, I've been addressing the elephant in the room. So in terms of like the content's not going to change. Like my pen is where it's at. Like you're going to every time I'm giving you something that wasn't in the world. That's kind of how like music started for me. I was taking a long drive to work every day when I was working um, for a firm on Wall Street and had to go to different offices and traveling, trains, flights. And music gets old really quickly when you're always in a car, always commuting.
Mhm.
So I wanted to hear a certain sound and I created it and put it in the world. Moving forward, that's how I continue to want it to be. Every time you put on a Mod project, it's going to be something that was not here before, and I'm going to give it to you. That's sonically, that's with my pen, um, the mixing and mastering, so the engineering will be better. And I'm excited because you guys have been growing with me. For the people who've been listening, even the people who don't, like, who like, prime example, there's people now who've heard my music for the first time today who think it's new, but it's been here. So to answer your question in terms of sonically sound, I'm going to continue to give you what's not here.
Mm, man, I like it.
Hope
I
that
like it.
makes sense though. Like
No,
so,
no, it makes perfect sense.
next project, like which kind of speaks to this segment. Segment is called Road to Recovery, and I'm going to be interviewing different people about their road to recovery after a year of truth. So the first project I gave you all was Truth last year. Um, if you haven't heard it yet, go check it out. Let me know what you think. But next, after you experience truth, it's road to recovery. And that's like the tough conversations that you have with yourself. So it's an entire project of me speaking to me. Um, there's some good conversation, there's some conversations, some awkward conversations, but I guess you could say, to truly love yourself or trust yourself, um, you got to have this conversation. So like, when you talk about my sonic sound, you got to trust yourself when you talk about spending that many hours in like days in a studio writing and things. I've had those conversations, so now I trust my ear. When I go into a studio, I know exactly what I say when I want to say it. I know how I want it to sound. So when I'm talking to my engineers, everything, I'm not like cowering or whimpering away. I'm saying exactly what I want to hear because I trust myself. I've had those tough conversations.
Mm, I like that. So it's pretty much just being comfortable in your truth and who you are, and
Hmm.
now you're on the road to recovery. I'm excited for people to hear this
Exactly.
project, and also I guess we could leave this open ended. Um, but I think it's very interesting. It's something important to speak about that after you discover your truth, you might need to be on the road to recovery. Like I think that says a lot about what it means to discover your truth. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want us to answer that. I want
Now,
everyone to think about that, like what that
yeah.
means.
I definitely think about it because like when you finally realize the truth about yourself, that's scary. Like, learn the truth about somebody else, you can go talk to somebody else about that. But when you learn the truth about you, I'm excited to see about how you react to that. Like when
Mm,
you find out that you're a piece of shit, when you find out like you're an alcoholic, when you find out like you have flaws, do you run away from it, or like, what do you do? Well, we'll see.
right.
But nah, this has been great. So everybody, I want to thank you. You just heard from Adrian Sullivan, new book on the way, new business, Rockstar Incorporated, for big things to come. Once again, if you don't know, my name is Maj, aka Ox Court Bully, aka Big Turkey with the Glasses, and we out.